Hello everybody, my name is Ratnus and welcome to This Week in Mythic Plus. This week's affixes are Tyrannical, Raging, Quaking, and Prideful. This is the second time around that we've been to these affixes while I've been making these videos, so if you're interested in a more, dungeon by dungeon focused one, you can go watch the one from 12 weeks ago. At this point I'm kind of thinking of this video series more as a weather forecast than as a in-depth analysis of each of the dungeons. I'll bring that back, of course, once we get to the next season, but it seems like the time for that has passed at this point into the patch. So, what do we got going on this week? It's actually a pretty good Tyrannical week, and honestly, it's a pretty good week to practice some keys, because next season, there's a good chance that we're going to be on the same calendar, except maybe one or two changes. They often do that, and of course a new seasonal affix. But almost regardless of what the seasonal affix is, there's a very good chance that weeks 12, 10, and 6 are going to be the good Tyrannical weeks, which means that next season, when there's in-game Mythic Plus score, and there's some Tyrannical and Fortified component, which we know there will be, it's going to be potentially one of the best weeks to push that score, to push your Tyrannical in-game IO score. So, given that, may as well get started now. Get started pushing some Tyran keys now. And this is a good week for it. The affixes going on are pretty low impact, especially on Tyrannical. Raging, Raging only shows up next to Tyrannical. You see it on Fortified in some Tournament Realm keys sometimes. It's really nasty there. Even on Tyrannical, though, it does make things pretty one-shotty. Of course, Druids, Hunters, and this expansion Rogues can Dispel and Rage with different abilities in their kits, although if you're playing with Pugs, it's an open question as to whether or not they'll have that on their bars. And Quaking, pretty low impact affix in a lot of dungeons. The major exception that kind of jumps to mind for me is Sanguine Depths on that one. Sanguine Depths is a dungeon where I feel like Quaking is pretty harsh. And there are a couple of boss encounters in the other dungeons as well, where, especially with Tyrannical going on, a bad Quake can get you in some trouble, depending on what mechanics are going on. But for the most part, besides Sanguine Depths, not a too impactful trash mechanic, which means that you probably, if you're trying to do keys at a level where the timer is kind of relevant for you generally this week, you're going to want to try and pull bigger than you normally do, because these affixes don't really stop you from doing that, and Tyrannical is going to punish you if you don't do that by making the timer a lot longer, making it so you go over the timer, rather. So, the thing to bear in mind when you're doing that is Raging is going to get you in trouble at the end of the pull, right? That's when all the mobs enrage. If there's one big important mob, you can potentially soothe it if you have somebody the right spec in your group to do that. But if there's several, then that's where you want to save your AoE stuns for the end of the pull and have your tank get out of there and kite at the end of the pull. And that's a little bit of a twist on the normal strategy. Normally, you'll group everything up, drop the stuns, and just nuke everything down, and you don't really care if the stuff as stuff is starting to die, whether you have the stuns there or not. But this week, you want to kind of concentrate your stuns towards the end of the pull. You could even save damage for the end of the pull, but it's not really that realistic. It's much more. It's pretty hard to get away from just using your cooldowns on pull, especially if they're available, and it's inefficient to do otherwise. But you can save the stuns at pretty low cost until the end of the pull. So I would recommend that. Of all the dungeons this week, of course, if you want to hear me talk about each of them specifically, you can watch the video from 12 weeks ago. If you want any of my routes for any of the dungeons, they'll be in the description below, a link to them. They're on Raider.io every week, and there's one with and without skips for each dungeon, so you see the skip here. And there's one that just goes through in a nice straight line through the dungeon instead, which those should work for, honestly, up to fairly high key levels these on good weeks like this. So that's what's going on the live servers this week. On the Tournament Realm, it's also a pretty exciting week, and that's probably where you're going to see several top teams and several top players, because this weekend is the Great Push qualifiers, and then the weekend after, the next weekend, right, in 10 days or so from when this video is coming out, is the Great Push itself. And that's going to be really exciting. I'm going to be casting that. That's going to be on Twitch and YouTube, and it's going to be this cool multi-day event where teams are pushing up keystones, kind of asynchronously. They're not in the same dungeon as each other at the same time or anything. They're just trying to time the key at a higher and higher level. The qualifiers for that, though, are this weekend, and a lot of teams, I think, will be streaming those. So if you're interested in watching teams try and push up a key as high as they can, that will be this weekend, and it'll be pretty fun to watch, I think. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really stoked for this event. I think it's going to be a really cool new take on competitive Mythic Plus, and yeah, I'm really excited. So should be a good time. Come swing by my stream, twitch.tv/Dratnos. Whenever I'm around, we can talk more about it. I won't be competing, of course, in it, because I'm going to be casting it instead, but I got some friends in it. I'm rooting for them and looking forward to it. Hopefully they qualify. So anyways, hope you liked the video. This series will continue for the indefinitely. The only time it'll stop probably is when the new patch comes out. I'll probably take a couple weeks off during Race to World First time. And then, yeah, I'll just keep this going 24/7 every week. Probably, what, like 46 weeks out of the year or something, except for a couple weeks of Race to World First. But if you're looking for, the kind of more analytical, in-depth, dungeon by dungeon, talking about something happening in each dungeon one, I'm not going to be making new versions of that until we get to the new affix. So go check out the ones from 12 weeks ago. If that's something you're interested in, this is more kind of just to prime you for the affixes and talk about some of the concepts and stuff, and also an update on what's happening this week in Mythic Plus in a broader way. Anyways, I'm rambling, so I'm going to end the video. Thanks for hanging out. See you in the next one. Bye.